Well, here we are in the 14th week. Couple of weeks of work left to go, and then finals, and then it's off to Jingle Bells and Christmas and any other holidays that are happening. So, what I want to do here is give you a demonstration on exposure blending. We've done HDR, and that's usually what's used when there is too wide a dynamic range in the shot. But there are times when HDR just looks phony. And what you want is a realistic image, one that looks the way you saw it or you felt that you saw it. But in the actual shooting, there was just too great a dynamic range, usually simply between the subject itself and the sky. And here's a really simple example of that. This shot was taken in Silver Plume, Colorado, a little old-timey mining town that's still hanging on. These buildings are still in use, by the way. It's a beautiful place to shoot, and I really just love going there. The problem is, there was heavy overcast, but you could see blue sky. There was sky up in here. There was detail in the snow, but in order to expose for that, now the buildings, the dark woods, everything is going too dark. So we have basically two exposures here. This one for the snow and the sky to make sure we've got all the detail we want. And this one for the buildings where we've got detail in these buildings, enough that we can ultimately bring out when we finish this. So our job is going to be to lay in the real sky. It's the sky that belongs here. I'm not picking this from a Grand Canyon shot or something different. This is the real sky for this. So we could go through and use a number of different selection tools. We could try the quick mask. There are all kinds of different ways we could select this, because ultimately what we want to do is select this top area. But I'm going to show you a way to use luminosity, to use tones to make a mask. And it can be a really very precise mask. So the first thing I'm going to do is come over here and I'm going to duplicate this top layer. And on this top layer, I'm going to use this to make my mask. So we'll go here to Image, Adjustments, and now we're going to come down here to a function that we haven't used before called Threshold. And what Threshold does is converts it simply to a 1-bit image, black and white. And here you can see this little dividing line in here is where it's separating. It comes up, it defaults exactly in mid-gray. But if I want to make sure that I've got just the darker areas selected, I can move this slider. And I'm going to say OK here. Now, I could go in and simply be very careful with what I'm selecting, but just to make sure, I'm going to go over here and make my brushes black and white. I'm going to take a black brush, and in this case, I want it to be fairly hard-edged so I can use it to mask out certain areas or to paint on certain areas. And I want the opacity to be 100%, and I want the mode to be normal. So I'm just going to come in here. Oops, missed that. Got to be a little careful. And with this fairly small brush, I'm going to go around the edges, get rid of all the snow that was up in the mountains. Now I'm going to make the brush bigger. and do in the rest of it. I'm going to deal with the bottom separately. So right now I just want to deal with the sky. Now, up in here, there's where the blue sky was. It's not white. So I'm going to need to come and switch brushes to a white brush and just paint that out. And I've got a couple of extra little dots in here that got left over that I want to get rid of. Okay, so now I have a mask. For those of you old-timey photographers, oh, I can see some white I missed in here. You may look at this and go, wow, this looks just like a lithographic mask. And that's exactly what it looks like, and we're going to use it in exactly the same way. If this were the darkroom, we would lay this mask in both parts. We'd have one part that is this. We'd have another part that is the reverse, like that. So we'd have two masks, a positive and negative, and we would sandwich these with our original photo. And from that, we could then expose different areas of it in different ways. Right now, all I care about is the sky. So I'm going to take this, and now I'm just going to use the magic wand tool. So I can click anywhere in this white. I've given it a very slight tolerance, so if there was a little bit of fading on the edges, it'll pick that up. And by clicking on the white, now you can see the marching ants in here, and I have selected everything that was in the sky. Well, now I can go down to this bottom layer, and you can see I've still got the mask active. It's still in there, still working fine. The simplest way to do this now would be to simply take the eraser tool over here, make a considerably bigger brush, and now erase through to that sky that's up in there. Now I can go down on this bottom layer. I'm still looking, look over here, I'm still looking at this layer, but this layer is now active. So I can take this and make this even a little more dramatic by bringing down some of that area. Well, that's way too much. My sky really can't be brighter than my snow, but they can be about equal. Okay. So I say okay. I could actually get rid of this mask now because I don't need this layer anymore. So I'm going to get rid of the selection. And there's my sky, all nicely put in. Now, I can see right in here on this mountaintop, I've created a line that doesn't belong there. So let me zoom in on this and see just how bad this is. Well, it's not too bad, but it's not too good. If I wanted to, I could go back and redo the tolerance on that selection. Or what I can do to fix this is just come in very small. Pick up my clone tool. And now I can go through and get rid of those offending little treetops that did not get picked up. We do a secondary pickup over here so I don't end up getting the roof. There we go. Now, we've got that fixed. So now we've got the sky in. What about this bottom part? Now we need to put in this snow here. So I'm going to come down and make this layer into a layer mask. I want to use a black brush, which is going to reveal the bottom layer. But because the bottom layer is a little too dark, if you recall, I darkened it to bring that sky in. I'm now going to use a fairly light brush. I'm only going to make it about 23%. Now I can bring that in, put my detail back in the snow, make the brush a little smaller, and maybe put a little detail back in this roof. And now I've got those two blended. There are a couple more things I want to do to this particular image. I think that can be a lot more. I noticed there was quite a bit more sky in that shot than what I gave it, so I'm going to bring some of that back in too while I'm at it. Okay, now I'm going to flatten this, and the first thing I want to do is straighten it up. This was shot with a very wide angle lens, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. I'll do a select, all, edit. We'll come down to transform, and we want skew. And I want to straighten these buildings up. Unfortunately, I'm going to lose this one, but I can't really help that. So I'll take that. I'll hit enter. Take that, deselect. Now I think I've got a little more tone in that building in some of these shadow areas that I could bring out. So I'm going to make a duplicate layer, make it a screen layer to see if there's anything there. And yes, there is. But I want to actually invert this, so I'm going to hit Control-I. And now I can come through and lighten this with a white brush. I need a little more brush than that. Now I can bring out some of this tone that I lost in the darkness. And now we have our blended shots. Flatten that. And there's our final shot. Ready to go with the new sky, the snow put in. Now, I could have put in any other sky behind here if I'd really wanted to, but this seemed to work pretty well for what I want. I think I'm going to make one more quick change on this. I want to darken that blue a little bit. So I'm going to let this be a luminosity layer. I'm going to do image, adjustments, black and white, and I want to bring that blue down. so that it stands out just a little more. And we're going to bring the reds back up. There's a lot of red in that wood, I think. Yep, there it comes. Now we have our final shot. And if we compare that to the original, there was our original, all blown out and crooked. And there's our final shot. We can crop this down a little bit to make it a little easier to concentrate on. But in terms of the blending of exposures, that's all there is to it.